Go.
Hello, what have we here? And salutations. It's another collaborations of the Law Wands Friday night discussions about Star Wars. Today, we and our panel of guests are going to talk about Canto Bight. How necessary is it to the plot of The Last Jedi? And any apprehensions or any insight that we glean from those scenes. Now, it's going to be centered mostly around Canto Bight, but the conversation will noticeably go further into The Last Jedi and probably a little bit before because the themes of Canto Bight are present throughout the film.
Yep, absolutely. Kris, ready to introduce our panelists?
Well, who are you two people?
Oh, I'm Luke. Hi, guys.
I'm Char, by the way.
I'm just here.
Hereth
In case you
is
forgot
missing,
about us.
busy
Hereth-
buying.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Busy buying a PS5, which
Hey.
I don't blame him.
I don't hate that move.
Yeah.
But
Wait, that's what Hereth's doing?
yeah, he was at work and then he bought a PS5, so he has to go get that thing.
Let's go. I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, so next time y'all see or talk to Hereth, congratulate him, but also talk about him because he wasn't here for this. So first up on our panel of guests, coming to you live from Far Far Away Factory, we have Brooke.
Hold on. Sorry, I thought Kris would bring that. My bad. All right, here we go.
I've been waving for 10 seconds.
She had her hand up like this for a good 2 seconds.
hey, guess what, Brooke? Go.
Oh my gosh.
Boom.
Yeah, Brooke, you're
I
going to
don't-
shout out your
I-
stuff here.
Oh, okay. So I've here's my spiel. I cannot enjoy something or consume something in a chill way ever. So I figured I'd make some money off of it. So buy my stuff.
Capitalism. Yeah.
It's a bunch of nerdy stuff, lots of Star Wars, lots of Marvel, lots of other random franchises here and there when I feel inspired. Yeah, give me money because I need that. Trying to go to London.
Yeah, I've got one of her sweatshirts on.
60 days, y'all. 60 days, and we'll be in London.
Stop.
Yes.
Stop right now. I have 5 costumes to make because I also am making one for Brad now.
You girl boss too close to the sun,
I
huh?
did girl boss too close to the sun, but
I get that.
Yeah, my ideas are so good, so I have.
I can't help that I'm such a good ideas person.
But I also am not chill, so I have to do it.
That's fair. I mean, Kris, I don't know if I'll do Kenobi Obi-Wan, but I am definitely doing Blue Obi-Wan.
It doesn't matter. I'm still dragging you through fire.
Blue
That's not happening.
Your pain
Just
has
Obi-Wan?
just begun.
Oh,
Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Brooke, where can the good people follow you?
Well,
It's actually fantastic people now.
It's been a long day, man.
No, I agree.
Underscore specifically Bdazzler underscore TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and I stream on Twitch sometimes, and that is B underscore Dazzler.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Kris, who's up next?
Next, we have the progenitor of this conversation from our last Friday night discussion, Chase.
I don't appreciate that, Kris.
I
Real
do.
fire, or is this like actual combustion happening
That's
on
like
Luke's
peak
face?
content. I don't know why you're turning down good content.
Exactly.
Because I don't want to go to a hospital in London.
Remember,
It's free healthcare.
Stop. Hear me out.
Not for them, not for me.
Remember when Chewbacca humiliated you at Disneyland?
Yes,
And I turned it into a
Yeah,
video
go to the
for you and
wall.
you posted it and it did well.
that's true.
Content.
That's true. That's good.
Yeah,
point.
Luke, when you're
Exactly.
suffering,
Commit
that's
to the
when
bit.
the algorithm
Do it-
likes
do
it.
it
All
for
right,
the vine.
the only
Yes.
do it for the vine.
Mm-hmm.
The only bit that I am committing to is the one that I'm never going to break, and I'm already in too deep. So that's how we're doing this.
You're welcome.
Back to take.
Exactly. See, you'll be fine.
And then Kris said the most Kris thing ever. That's like, Kris, isn't that your main response to a lot of things? It's like, I said what I said.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, Chase, where can the good people follow you?
You can follow me on TikTok at ForwardIntotheBlack, where I talk about Star Wars and Star Citizen.
By the way, that Star Citizen, I've been seeing that on my For You page. Holy shit, does that look cool?
It's not.
It's not?
It's cool. It's cool. It's complicated.
Oh man, that looks fucking cool. Chase, it's not.
It's not.
Nah.
Don't get it.
Don't get your hopes up.
Do you
Luke.
do you
It's
like
really
your life,
not.
Luke?
I mean,
Because that game will make you hate your life.
All right. Well, thanks for warning me. Appreciate that. But yeah.
And last but not least, coming to you live from like 20 feet away from me in a separate room, the international award-winning filmmaker, my older brother, Rob.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
Good. How are you, Rob?
Boo.
Hey,
I'm
hey.
doing fine. I was waiting for Kris to start something. I was waiting for him to start something.
You know what the
No.
funny thing is though is
No.
that Kris has a background of him in the Falcon, but you're just in a regular room. And you're 20 feet away.
Yeah,
We're like
yeah. I
20
thought about
parsecs
that. I was
away.
like,
But Rob, aren't
Yeah, I
you
was
the
like,
filmmaker? You gotta have something background-wise.
I do have backgrounds. I just haven't. I didn't set it up. I was like, oh, I'm behind a blue screen, which would be perfect for a background right now. But I was like, I'll just keep it regular right now. You know,
Yeah.
I'll be special later on in the podcast. I'll be
See, he
special.
could
There
have
we
he
go.
could have made it like the poster of his last film with all like the awards and accolades on it, but you know,
I could have
see,
done
this
that.
is why he keeps me around, not just to be the lawyer, but also to do the marketing and the promo. Like,
Rob was like, well, it could have.
Rob. The fact that this is starting off with two siblings just bashing each other is exactly how I thought. This was
I'm
gonna go.
regretting this choice already. I'm regretting this choice already.
I'm not.
Don't worry, it'll only get worse from here.
But Rob, where
Oh,
can
it
the
always
people
will.
find all of your content, your award-winning movies and stuff?
So currently my movie is, which is called Life Ain't Like the Movies, by the way. It's currently on Tubi, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Roku, and a couple other places. But most of my other content you can find on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at Breezy2345. Pretty much anywhere that has social media, if it's Breezy2345, it's pretty much going to be me.
Awesome. I can't wait to listen to you all these amazing people talk about Canto Bight, because I literally watched The Last Jedi today and I was like, I really don't have a say on whether I like it or not. I'm kind of just in the middle. So yeah, I feel like you guys are biting for my vote, so this should be fun.
Luke, no one's
We're
fighting for
openly
your vote, Luke.
campaigning.
Yeah, hey.
Luke, there is no gray Jedi. It's either you like it or you don't, okay?
Hey, I never said great Jedi. We don't talk about that. That's like we don't talk about Bruno.
But for
No.
Canto Bight, there is no middle ground. It's either you like it or you
I
don't
mean, I don't know.
It
But-
depends on
and
how
that's
narrow.
Last Jedi as a whole. It's either you like it or you don't.
That's fair. But
I mean, it really depends. A very lawyer response. It depends on how you frame it. Like, you know, I don't. For my position on this is like the rest, the themes of Canto Bight, the like some like the dialogue, what's happening underneath. I am neutral on like or dislike. Don't really care. When it comes to Finn specifically, that is where all my issues derive from, and like 60% of my issues with the sequel trilogy. Because from my point of view, I feel like Finn shouldn't have gone on this journey with Rose to Canto Bight. I felt like Poe would have been better for that. Ryan Johnson.
I think you're right. I think that was the point, though.
Yeah, so Ryan Johnson talked about how in his first draft for the script, it was supposed to be Finn and Poe, but he said that there was no conflict there. They get along really well, so he needed to create a character that, well, first he was like, okay, Poe needs to go from hero to leader, so I need to get him away from Canto Bight because that's not where he's going to learn that. And then for Finn, he needed to create a character, and he created Rose. And Rose was originally supposed to be like grumpy and sort of like this gruff kind of character. But then after they cast Kelly Marie Tran and he saw like the energy she brought to the role, he's like, okay, I got to change Rose's dynamic to fit that. And I guess for me, the first point I'll talk about with Finn is Finn and Rose did not need to be antagonistic, at least by the time we get to Canto Bight, because Rose talks about when they're looking over the Fathiers, is that what they call them?
Yeah,
Fathiers. And, you know, she's talking about what the First Order did to her and her family and her experience. They could have had that conversation on the way to Canto Bight, and then Finn could have told her the truth of why he left the First Order and pretty much all his events in The Force Awakens. And that would have caused a much more interesting dynamic between the two, considering she still pretty much views him as a coward and a traitor pretty much throughout that entire film up until we get to them getting captured.
That's a fair point. Who wants to give their opinions on Canto Bight next?
I mean, in the Rose and Finn dynamic, I view it a little differently. I view Rose as an educator to Finn. I think she is, with the discussion she has about how, I don't know if her homeworld is named, but basically the First Order using it as a mining resource and then use the resources to shell her planet and, leaving, her sister Paige and her like pretty much without a home. She's already been radicalized into the Resistance. And I think Finn is still learning that radicalization process. I think there's a lot of stuff that, because you see him going into Canto Bight and he has this wonder of everything around him. Like it's just so much, there's so many lights, there's so much money, the outfits, everything's extravagant. He's never seen this. And we see this in the previous movie with Rey. So there's like a parallel there. And he doesn't see what Rose sees. And Rose is trying to guide him and be like, I get that it's pretty. I get that it's nice. And this is like the dream, but you have to look deeper. And he does start to see this as their adventure in Canto Bight goes on.
That's fair.
Oh no, I completely get what Chase is saying too, because
yeah,
when he was talking about the Hazian smelt, the mineral that is wrapped around Rose's neck, that was brutally mined by the First Order. Her home planet, Haze Minor, was eradicated. They blatantly killed all of her people. I mean, the majority of them, just to test out the weapons that, just to test out the stuff that they were mining there. Just to be like, hey, okay, we're going to build these weapons. We're going to manufacture all these things, test them on your people, and then we're going to use them across the galaxy. And there's a deep hatred that Rose has for her. And Finn doesn't see that yet, because as what Chase said, Finn is just learning what side he's on. Even that whole sequence with DJ, when DJ's like, do it for yourself, not for the Resistance, not for the First Order, do it for you.
I have similar feelings with that. I really like the dynamic because, and I think Ryan Johnson has talked about how like Rose and DJ are like the angel and devil on Finn's shoulder. And like, if you think about where Finn came from, he's a lot less experienced in like the world because of how he was brought up in the First Order. So Rose has seen a lot, like we said. DJ has probably seen a lot. And they are kind of like the opposite sides of the spectrum of like who he could end up as. Someone who, really wants to fight for freedom, or someone who is very self-interested like DJ. So that's why I like it. And it doesn't bother me that they're like more antagonistic towards each other. But
so for me, contextually, not from what Rose knows, because Rose has this very limited view because of the information that she has. And so for coming from here, our a viewer overview of Finn. Finn was a slave. So less than a week or within less than 10 days, he just escaped his enslavement. So it's weird to me for him to be educated on or touted that, oh, the First Order and the Resistance are the same. To me, from a narrative standpoint, that comes off as insulting, because Finn, when it comes to DJ is apathetic to everything. He's like, they're all the same. So it doesn't matter who you join, because as long as you're in it for yourself, nothing's going to change. Finn knows that's not true, because although both sides have technically called him a traitor and tried to imprison him, you know, at least he has with the Resistance, with Rey, with Poe, with Leia, with Han, people that actually did try to look out for him. Having had that conversation, if Rose and he had had a conversation on the ship or on the way to Canto Bight, she would have been a lot more understanding of him. But she doesn't know what he's been through, and he's only just learning what she's been through. You know, the parallels between Rey and Finn with regards to, you know, like Rey didn't know that there was this much green in the galaxy. Finn, there's a purity in what Rey had versus there is a taintedness in what Finn sees. And I don't feel that is fair for him to have that moment and then have it immediately taken away, because that's pretty much everything that happens with Finn in the trilogy. He gets this plan to escape. He immediately gets thrust into the conflict. He has a friend with Rey. He's immediately separated from her. And so I feel like he never gets a chance to actually experience anything without being like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And
So
I was going to say, I want to talk about Chris's comment.
yeah.
Because my like feelings, and I think like us as an audience, we know that Finn was essentially a slave in the First Order. But if you like put yourself in Finn's shoes, I view it more as like being in a cult and then having to deconstruct that. And that takes a lot of time after, you know, growing up with all of this propaganda and brainwashing. And like, obviously when he left, like he knew that something was wrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like he's all of a sudden like all better, you know, like he still has to take time to deconstruct everything that he knew before that. And I think for like Rose, if you put yourself in her perspective, like she's also grieving, like her sister just died, and grief does a lot to a person and clouds their judgment and their view. So she's obviously very angry.
And that's why they needed to have a conversation, because Finn also knows that kind of grief, because he has no family, but the only friends, and bringing in expanded material, the only actual friend he had was the one that put the 3 blood lines on his face, which was Slip. It was and Finn had been looking out for him pretty much as long as they had known each other, because they were in the same troop. And so that also, Finn was never actually brainwashed. The context of it is he resisted it because of his Force connection, because from what little we do have, he was in his own way resisting not following the First Order's rules, like in a way things happened. So to me, it's just like, had this happened, let's say a year after The Force Awakens, where Finn has time to deconstruct really anything, then that's a more fair representation. But considering he's been in a coma for half the time he's been free, and I don't know if you really consider it freedom, considering he's still technically on the run for most of The Force Awakens, and then he's in a coma, and then now he's back in the conflict. And pretty much being subjected, okay, like now you have to choose, like you don't get to find out even who you are as a person outside of being in war.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that, and I'll say this, I think Canto Bight is a perfect pivotal, for me, it's a perfect pivotal moment for Finn's character. Because kind of what we said in the very beginning of like, he's not supposed to be there. Rose is not supposed to be there. Holdo says that, like, why did you send these people? These people are not the people to be on this mission. And that's a whole arc of Poe's character of like screwing everything up, essentially, is his number one goal. But in the like 3 movies with Finn, I look at The Force Awakens as the realization of Finn as a person and realizing that like, hey, the First Order, not the vibe. Let's get out of this. And he starts to realize, like, let's start to right the wrongs and do the right thing. And in The Last Jedi, it's his awakening. It's his understanding of his place in, not necessarily like the First Order versus the Resistance, his place in the galaxy and what is right and what is wrong. And he's going to make mistakes along the way. He makes mistakes on Canto Bight. He takes the shortcut and doesn't even try to, once they get captured, he doesn't try to go after the code breaker. He just like, what, DJ will do just fine, which incorrect. And we see that goes pretty terribly. And he also tries to sacrifice himself in the end of the movie, and he doesn't need to. And Rose, again, guides him through that. And in The Rise of Skywalker, it's his radicalization. It's him leading people to take down who enslaved him and oppressed him. And I think I really enjoy the character arc he has. How it was executed could be a whole other debate, but I do like the 3 steps they take with Finn's character in the sequel trilogy, with Canto Bight being the pivotal moment for him.
Interesting. Rob?
Interesting points. Now I'm listening because honestly, this is the first time I'm actually hearing people who actually like the Canto Bight sequence. So I'm just listening to absorb information, hear their viewpoints, why they like it before I say anything. Because like I said, this is the first time I've actually spoken to some people who about The Last Jedi that like that sequence. Most of the people in my friend groups do not like that sequence, and I am one of them. It's just because from a narrative standpoint, it feels like it robs the film of any momentum. Like the plot is finally starting to get going. We started to find things out with, Leia. Leia gets attacked and now she's sidelined. Now we have Holdo, who's in command, who we know nothing about. And then now we have Rose and Finn going on this side quest that feels like a spinoff of a show that could have been a Disney Plus series at some point. Rose and Finn's adventures on Canto Bight. So it feels like it's very divorced from the actual narrative of the storyline, which is why I tend not to like it. Like I get it from the things of, war, painting the sides, both sides are shades of gray. Nothing's ever black and white in Star Wars as, they were in the original trilogy. I guess that's what Rian Johnson was trying to do, was shade the world of Star Wars in shades of gray and say nothing's as good or as bad as it seems. But when it comes to like Finn, his character arc, like in the first, in The Force Awakens, we find out that, he is basically a child soldier. He's a child soldier who went through training, conscription. He didn't have a choice. He got forced into this. And then now in his very first moment of actually getting battle experience, he resists. He cannot fire a shot. Then his friend dies, marks up his helmet. It screws him up internally and then messes up. He finds, what's the term I'm looking for? He finds a chosen family in Rey. He finds kinship, he finds friendship in Rey, and he latches onto that because it's never a connection he's felt before outside of that stormtrooper that died. So then now he's forced into this position where he has to make a choice between finding his friend or serving the greater good, which I don't think he needed to learn lessons between the difference between the greater good and his friend, because he knows the First Order is bad. Throughout The Force Awakens, that's why he's running away from the First Order, not just because they razed the village and killed a bunch of innocent people. He knows that they're already evil, and he doesn't need that lesson, I guess, a second time, is how I felt like. It felt like they were just rehashing things that Finn has already known. And that's kind of why it's just between it feeling divorced from the main narrative of the film, it robs momentum of the film, and then it feels like Finn's character arc, it was just thrown in there for Finn to have something to do. And it felt,
I'd add on to that I feel like if there was ever one person to talk about the benefits of joining the resistance, and on the flip side to be the devil on the shoulder to stay out of the conflict, DJ wouldn't be one because DJ is apathetic, and that's not Finn ever. It would have been a stormtrooper that left the Empire, or a clone, someone that is a cautionary tale to Finn. Like, this is who you would be in something that is more connective to him, where it's like, I was in this issue. I was under the Empire. I was under the Republic, and I saw what everything became, and I decided to leave. And whether I regret or don't regret being a part of the rebellion, or the New Republic, or something to that effect. And in terms of the angel on his shoulder, to me, the best person to teach him, the absolute best person, is Leia, because Leia was born under the Empire and had to look like she was serving it while secretly, even unbeknownst to her parents, fighting for the rebellion. And so for someone that's been in the fight for, at this point, probably 40 years, close to it, because she's like 53, I think, when she dies, and she started when she was like 13 or 14, so close to 40 years. Like, that is someone, and besides the other parallels between Finn and Leia, like, that is the best person to communicate those to Finn, as opposed to someone that is more or less, because of how it is written, preaching to a slave about why his oppressors are bad. And that's not a Rose character issue. That is a Rian Johnson writing issue, in my opinion.
Interesting.
I would make the argument that you're right. Like, those are the ideal people to handle these situations for Finn. Like, yes, Leia should be the one talking to him. Rose should not be the one on this mission with her. But I do think what Yoda says, talking to Luke, is, the greatest teacher failure is. I think everything on Canto Bight is a failure, from who's there, for why they're there, for how they handle it, and how they get back, and everything goes wrong. And I think all of the choices made and all the directions they go lead to failure, which is the theme of the movie. So I think everything falls in line with the theme of The Last Jedi, because, like, yeah, of course, like, it'd be great if, Poe Dameron, made the right choice and didn't send bombers in when they didn't need to. It'd be great if he didn't provoke the First Order and then have TIEs send missiles into one of their capital ships. It'd be great if they sent people to sneak onto the First Order ship with an actual plan, with people who, like, can strategize this and can, like, realize it for them. None of this is done, but that's the point. And that's, like, the lesson that a lot of these characters learn. I don't think Finn's lesson is that the First Order is bad. Finn's lesson is how deep these roots have grown. And that, yeah, like, it's so easy to say XYZ is bad. Great. Congratulations. You've learned, like, the most basic thing. But then to realize, like, the systemic problems, like, it takes processing, it takes understanding, and it usually takes people who've, felt these things, a character like Rose, who had a horrible experience with the First Order. And, Finn, obviously, who's been in the First Order, they have this equal hatred, but Rose has been able to process this, I think, a little bit longer than Finn has. She's been on the outside longer than Finn has, and can help Finn understand how deep the roots have grown, how deep that evil is. And again, no one is teaching Finn First Order bad. I don't think that's the point of the movie, but I think there's deeper plot points that are trying to be explained to Finn.
I like that Rose is, like, the little guy. Like, I think Leia would be the ideal person for Finn, and I wish, like, I think what would make it better for me is, like, just not necessarily changing Canto Bight, but just giving more screen time to Finn and more interactions with the other characters like Leia, to kind of reinforce the stuff that he learned maybe on Canto Bight. I just feel like otherwise, why is Rose there? And then she's not an important character, and then she's written out because there's someone else there. And I feel like it was important to have a character like Rose in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what
And
I
I think the
mean?
reason why Rose was important was because when you look at the Canto Bight scene as a whole, you see them trying to go find the master code breaker so they can break into the tracking system of the First Order of the Supremacy. But in reality, though, they end up inspiring the next generation of the Resistance by accident. That's what I get from it with the children and how
Yeah.
they were able to be like, "Hey, we're not the bad guys. Look at this sigil. Look at the ring. These are the symbol." And it connects right to what Holdo said when she took over. It's like our symbol is known across the galaxy, and people will fight for it. Because once those
Yeah.
kids see it, they know exactly who they are, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll help you. We'll help you." And
Because
at the end of the movie, you see those kids again with like it all
And
happened
they've
by
been
accident. It
inspired.
wasn't supposed to be what they were going for, but it happened. And that's what I got from it. It's I mean, even though it wasn't really fleshed out in The Rise of Skywalker, but it was a beautiful moment for, not even for Star Wars fans, but like upcoming Star Wars fans to be inspired by these sequel trilogy main characters that are being like, "Hey, we're not here, we're not a threat. Here. We're friendly, and we're just trying to find a way to escape these bozos on Canto Bight that are trying to capture us." Because Slow and Low was like, "Hey, you can't park there." Zap zap. And
Yeah.
but
Brooke, you were saying something.
I was just gonna say, like, to me, Rose is like the heart of the story and kind
Yeah.
of the heart of the themes of Star Wars, because she's been through so much and seen so much and suffered so much, and even has watched the Resistance fail in their missions, but also fail her because they failed to keep her sister safe, and yet she still has full faith in this cause because she sees like just how bad it is on like the ground.
I think an important moment for Rose, and like I really, really do appreciate Rose in this movie for a plethora of reasons, but the moment when they're on the ship, or they're on the yacht with DJ, and he's like, "You got to give me some collateral to do this," and he wants the Hazian smelt, the medallion, and Finn's like, "No, no, 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 that's important to Rose. Like, you can't take that away from her." And Rose, like, without hesitation, is like, "Take it." Like, material things mean nothing to her. I mean, not that they don't mean nothing, but like, it doesn't supersede like the cause. It doesn't supersede her friends' lives. And I think these are things that I think Finn is still learning as he's going along, and it's a really good journey that he's on. And her being able to do this, and her doing stuff like that, has I think parallels with the real world. I think with the father, animal liberation activists do pretty insane stuff, and Rose is fully on board to do these things because it is for the greater good. And it's like, yes, this may seem super intense and super extreme in the moment, but what we're doing is right. And there's like tons of allegory of like children in pens and child labor with factory farming, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of parallels in this movie with real world stuff that's would make this thing maybe hours long. But I really do appreciate character for being that person who knows can still grow as a person, but understands like, hey, we can't hold on to these things. We can't just look at Canto Bight from the surface. We have to like dig deeper. We have to make sure that everyone is taking to make sure that we're not holding on to the things that don't matter. And in the end of the movie, it's clear that she's given one of those kids the ring. That's probably important to her. It's a symbol of her ideologies, but she's like, let me pass this to another kid so that they have that spark, the same spark that I have. So I love Rose with all my heart.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because the real world parallels succeed for Rose, but they fail Finn. Because you talked about earlier about the systemic issues and how deep these things run with the First Order, which Finn already demonstrates by saying we have to get like to the most outer part of the Outer Rim to get away from the First Order. But the other thing is, when you have a black character that you have essentially propped up as a slave, you have to take a special care in how they are written and how their character develops when they finally do attain their freedom. And this is as much an issue for Rian Johnson as it is for many white writers when writing BIPOC characters, just as much as it with many male writers being able to write women writers. Finn was written as if he was not black, and while in the ultimate goal of progress that might be good, at this point when there's so much struggle for representation, it is not a point of success to say that he was written in a colorblind manner. And I think that when you have this opportunity, but you already feel like, yes, Rose is driving the plot forward on Canto Bight, but at this point, Finn has already taken a back seat. Now he's taking another back seat. And is now like, okay, you need to learn this. You need to learn this. You need to learn this. Instead of him actually being able to be front and center in his own plot line. And I would also argue that in terms of failure, Finn has failed pretty much every point we've seen him on screen.
Yep.
And the overall thing is, if they do win, it's a Pyrrhic victory that someone else obtained. So with escaping from the First Order at the beginning of The Force Awakens, it's more Poe that is driving that success. Finn is helping out because he can't pilot a ship. Fine. When it comes to escaping the First Order on Jakku, that's him and Rey working together. So that'd be the one real success that is then kind of snatched away because they get picked up by Han and Chewie. Han and Chewie, or Han and Rey, are the reasons why they're able to escape the various gangs and the Rathtars. When they get to Takodana, he's not really a part of. He's a part of the battle, but then he gets saved by Han. Fine, whatever. Starkiller Base, they succeed in rescuing Rey, but then are immediately put back in the crosshair of things. Finn, attempts to save Rey after she gets knocked out. He succeeds for a little bit and then is immediately knocked out and injured, and then Rey wins. So at this point, when we get to The Last Jedi and say, okay, the themes are failure, Finn's pretty much only known failure since he started. So I don't think that's, like at that point for him, he needed to fail because he already has.
And I mean, I think, it's so tough because it's like we got Kris and then we got Kris. So whenever I say like I agree with Kris, and it's like, wait, hold on, there's two Krises. I think Kris makes a good point down here. He says
it would have been nice if a more diverse cast of writers looked at the overall meta plot of the sequel trilogy and go, hey, you know what?
Well,
because I mean, the writers of the story. I mean, because we got Chris Terrio in episode 9, we got Rian Johnson in episode 8, and we also have I believe Kasdan wrote episode 7, right?
Kasdan wrote Abrams, I believe.
Yeah, Kasdan and Abrams, and I mean, they're all white. Which Chris made a good point, as if they wrote him as a white character, and I feel like they could have added more pieces to that writing board for what he could have done and what he could have been presented as in those 3 films, and I mean, if you think about like the overall meta plot of the sequel trilogy, it was them taking down the First Order, and Rey finding herself. That was the main plot. But everyone else that was incorporated with the story, with the Resistance, with Finn, Rose, Poe, Chewie, and Han, and later on Rose, and I already said Rose, but you know what I mean, like because Kelly Marie Tran, that was the first main Asian character in Star Wars. So they were doing groundbreaking things with the sequel trilogy, with having the first African American main character, the first Asian main character, and with Poe Dameron being the first Latino character. It's when you have these white writers covering all these different diverse actors and actresses, it's really hard to be able to portray, their real self, in a sense.
There's I fully agree that like a more diverse writing staff would have helped out quite a lot. I don't want to say that the writing staff failed. I think the stories they told were impactful. I think they resonated with a lot of people. I think young kids are going to resonate with these characters growing up for a myriad of reasons. The one thing that's always I think been a fault of Star Wars since its inception is that it's always been owned by and this is not a Star Wars exclusive problem, it's more of a media problem, is can you tell stories like Canto Bight, right? That, well, essentially capitalism bad, right? Can you tell that through the lens of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, being Disney or 20th Century Fox? Can you tell a story about defector mentality, someone like Finn, when we don't fully understand defectors in the real world, the psychological effects of Americans going to North Korea in the 50s and 60s, or going to Vietnam in the 70s, and then going to the Middle East in the 90s and 2000s? We don't fully understand this yet. So can you tell these stories accurately and positively? I don't know if that's the right word to use. It's a tricky thing that I think people try. Like, I mean, there's oodles of video games out there made by the biggest billion-dollar publishers saying, hey, capitalism bad. It's like, oh, it's a great story. I love the message. You shouldn't be telling this story. And do we hold the same reservations for Star Wars being owned by initially 20th Century Fox and now Disney, basically going from the biggest media conglomerate to the now biggest media conglomerate? Like, can we tell these stories through those lenses accurately? And maybe that's another debate, because it's something I've always struggled with, like, and even the ethics of, can you find yourself in a quote anti-capitalist mentality and consume things like Star Wars, knowing that
which is a funny thing, because a lot of people claim or talk about the capitalism in that particular scene in Canto Bight, which, I mean, reality was it wasn't really about capitalism. It was just the way that the people in Canto Bight made their money,
or profiteering.
It was associating with the First Order. That was the main issue. I don't think people wanted to cover capitalism as like the main central focus of the problem, but in reality, it was just them selling weapons to the people that are causing all these issues across the galaxy.
Which isn't any different than
Which is
what
why Rose
George...
gets so angry, because those are the same people that are giving weapons to the people that oppressed her people.
Which isn't any different than what we see in the original trilogy. I mean, basically the whole rebellion versus the Empire is George putting the middle finger up to the U.S. government for the Vietnam War. You know, like, Star Wars has always had that underlining kind of rebellion, kind of like against the establishment type of move. And I guess that's kind of what they were kind of looking for in Canto Bight. I think after hearing a lot, because again, I don't really have much of a say on Canto Bight. It's not that I don't like it or I super love it. I think it's necessary for the story. Does it? I can kind of understand where Rob's coming from, though, from like a filmmaker standpoint, where like the narrative itself, like, you kind of feel like it's taking away from other things that we are seeing at that time. But I think it is kind of necessary for Finn and Rose, particularly because you want them to have that screen time. You know what I mean? And my big thing is that Finn, particularly in the sequel trilogy, gets sidelined way too much. And that's what I kind of agree with Kris, in particularly because I think Finn had so much potential, and I feel like they just kind of dropped the ball with his character.
So, look, so you watched The Last Jedi today. Do you have like any like opinions on it, or are you are you just going to be an arbitrator? You know what I mean?
Well, I know I don't really have an opinion. Like, to be honest, like I enjoy.
We all have to have an opinion. Come on.
Well, I don't. I just
you
don't.
know what, you watched that movie and you were preparing to talk about this, that you're like, oh, I don't know.
I get both sides of the thing. I just don't lean one way or the other. I'm just kind of like in the middle. But Rob was gonna say something. Rob.
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, no. One of the things I was going to bring up is one of my larger issues with the sequel trilogy as a whole is that our main trio never really have an established chemistry or connection throughout the film. So like if you compare it to the original trilogy, you know, you had Luke, Leia, and Han. They were all together from at least the middle point of A New Hope to the very end. Then when we get to Empire, they kind of split and fracture. So how Kris was saying that Rose was probably not the best person for that mission, should have been Poe. I agree with that point because Poe and Finn already have an established relationship. And I saw somebody in comments bring up the parallel that this was supposed to be like the Bespin section of The Last Jedi where everything goes wrong for the heroes. And I feel like they were trying, at the same time, they try to make DJ the new Lando of the film in that portion of it. It feels like there could have been a better chemistry building for Poe and Finn in that section. And I know Ryan Johnson said there wouldn't be any conflict, but that's not true. There's ways to create conflict based on how one does certain actions. Maybe Finn doesn't agree with the way Poe is trying to do things. Maybe Poe's trying to take more of a leadership role, and Finn doesn't like how he's being talked to because it reminds him of being in the First Order. There's different ways they could have put Canto Bight to make it a better sequence to fit to the larger narrative because Poe leaves his post. You know, Poe gets reprimanded for basically being reckless. So him sending, you know, Rose and Finn on this journey adds to that. But if he would have went himself and left his post, that would have added more to him being more reckless because now he's deserting his post to do something that he feels is better for the mission. I feel like there was a better way to incorporate Canto Bight into the larger narrative as a whole, and it just kind of misses the mark.
Yeah, Rob, you make a really good point too, because I think that a lot of people's issues with the sequels is them not being together as much as they should, because Rey doesn't meet Poe until the very end of episode 8. And in episode 9, they start like, you know, like having like chemistry, but I mean, they end up getting separated anyway, and then, you know, coming all together when Exegol happens. But yeah, you're right on the money with that. And go ahead, Kris.
I that's why I'd argue, because Rey doesn't meet Poe until the end of the movie, that the main trio of the sequels to me originally felt like Finn, Rey, and Ben. They all had connections, they all had parallels, and you can't tell me that on Starkiller Base that traitor wasn't just like, I hate everything about you. And
also Ben knew, or Kylo Ren knew who Finn was
prior to The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Well, and I also feel like that Force sensitivity, because I mean, when you see Kylo in The Force Awakens, he looks at Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just a coincidence that he's looking at Finn. Like, there's something up there.
And that was the second time that happened.
Yeah, and then Kylo's just like, he's kind of trying to figure things out, but he has that, like, that tunnel vision, right? We always see, like, the villains kind of have that tunnel vision, like, kind of like his grandpappy with Obi-Wan. Like, they have this set goal of trying to find the person that has hurt them the most, and it's like tunnel vision, and that's why he doesn't like go deeper into like, why is this trooper kind of giving me this vibe as well. But yeah,
bringing it back to Canto Bight, if it had been Finn and Poe, the way to create conflict, the blueprint for that is in the original trilogy. If you wanted them to be platonic, look at Luke and Han in A New Hope. If you wanted them to be romantic, look at Han and Leia at any of the movies. Honestly, like you have it right there. And people already try to make the parallels between Han and Leia and Finn and Poe, given that one sequence in Empire and The Last Jedi. Like, blueprints there.
yeah.
I think.
Feel like.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's hard for me to like picture Poe and Finn going to Canto Bight, because then that erases Rose as a character essentially. And if you're putting, you can create that conflict, but then to me that does a disservice to Poe's character unless you write it differently. And I don't know how you would do that, because I feel like in The Force Awakens he's like a static character, like he's like cool, he's a pilot in the Resistance, you know, he's, you know, a good guy. And then I really like his story in The Last Jedi because he has to grow into the leader that he becomes. And I feel like that would get lost And then
Mhm.
there's a whole third part of the plot line of the movie that you would have to fill in with something else. And I also don't know what you would put there.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me with Poe, and I think, Kris, the way you feel about Finn and The Rise of Skywalker is the exact same way I feel about Poe and The Rise of Skywalker, of like, buddy, you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything good. You just stood there. Like, your story arc was so good in The Last Jedi, and then The Rise of Skywalker, you're
And
just
he
like,
looked
no.
good doing it.
He looks great doing it. Well, we have to say this, like, the sequel trilogy has the best looking cast. But in The Last Jedi, kind of like when Canto Bight is going on, and kind of to bounce off what Brooke said, like, sure, we could send Poe with Finn, and there's a blueprint there to have that. We could also send Chewbacca. We could send Admiral Akbar. We could send anyone to Canto Bight if we want to, right?
Admiral Akbar and Canto Bight.
That'd be sick.
Akbar
That'd be
was
sick.
dead. R.I.P. to a real one.
We can rearrange
And
the
I
script.
actually kind of vibe with that, because then he's like the older, like grumpy, like father figure.
Where's the Master Codebreaker?
He's like, there's an artificial ocean here. Oh, great. Oh, finally.
It's a trap.
We can't put that girl here.
But I think, and I think it was Rob that said it, that like we didn't know anything about Holdo coming into it, and it's like that's intentional, because Finn reacts. I'm sorry, Finn. Poe reacts to that like, ooh, who's in charge? Who's this person? I'm in charge. I'm Poe Dameron. I'm the best, and he gets shot down by Leia and Holdo. Like, stop. I think that's great for his character. I think, personally, Poe should have had a story arc that was more along the lines of, you keep fucking up and it's costing people their lives. You need to slow down. You need to stop. And we get that with Holdo. And he decides to do a mutiny, which is, again, the wrong mistake. And because Holdo's already 10 steps ahead of Poe. And I think her doing that, and then also her sacrificing herself, and what Leia says, I think I have the quote written down. She's more interested in preserving the life and being a hero, which is super important for Poe's arc in The Last Jedi. And I think it's really important that he does go through that. Could he go through that on Canto Bight? Sure. I think there's a way to write that in, but I do think the way they wrote it with Poe staying with the Resistance works with Mr. Foe.
the ship name for Finn and Poe.
Storm
If
pilot.
it was Poe and Rose on Canto Bight, I do feel like that opportunity is written with there, because we still don't even have it in the expanded material where Rose confronts Poe about getting Paige killed.
That is true. I think that
Because
could have been a very big thing for Poe's, like, oh, well, fuck. Here we go.
especially
Like, that's
because
kind of
it's an unnecessary death, to be honest, which
Yes.
given all the context of the film and everything that we have, like, Paige did not have to die. All those people didn't have to die. And the fact that we still don't have that confrontation, even in Resistance
They
Reborn.
explore like Poe's grief in Resistance Reborn, but they don't do any like specifics like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
Rogue
Rose
Squadron
is-
is going to be about. That's all I got to say.
I love it, the sustained optimism from Chase about Rogue Squadron. I love it.
One thing I rewatched The Last Jedi last night, and one thing I noticed, because without all the whiny crybabies who don't know anything about Star Wars and how starships work complaining about the bombers, one thing I noticed about that sequence and then the sequence following, and how Poe's vision kind of clouds everything going on, is that he wants to take down the Dreadnought, right? And all of the pilots behind him also want to take down the Dreadnought, and none of the pilots are saying, Poe, I think this is a bad idea. All of the pilots are like, let's get it. We're gonna do this. You have Tally there that is like grinning. She's like, screw Leia, we're taking this thing down. Poe is the guy to do this. And the bomber pilots and Paige is doing everything she can to make sure that Dreadnought goes down. And as I think maybe as drawn out as that sequence is, I think it's great. And I think it is this kind of whole other level of the higher command versus the people on the ground or in the starships in this situation of like, they want this and they want to feel, you know, whatever it is for those individual pilots and the operators within the bombers and stuff like that, of like, they want to feel the glory. They want to feel like they did something that mattered. And it's something I
Never happens.
no. When we were watching, I was watching it with Hereth last night, and as Ren is going by Leia, I was like, "Goose, you want to buzz the tower?"
Jesus Christ, that's fun.
and that's why I feel like a conversation in the movie before Poe has learned that lesson about being a hero versus being a leader, it would have been important for him to talk to Rose, because now you're not talking command to that mid-command level. You're talking to the everyman who has been affected in a way that a lot of these people haven't been affected specifically. Like, they've all lost people in different ways, but like, you are directly responsible because you led her sister to her death. And just saying it's a hero, she died a hero, doesn't necessarily alleviate that.
Right. And with Tally and in the more expanded material, her sister Callie both died under Poe's command. And Poe's like, you know, the joke is permission to get in an X-Wing and blow stuff up to Leia. It's like, they don't actually need to do this right now. They need to focus on getting out of there. And Poe's still like, let's do it. And then Tally's like, yep, whatever Poe says, let's go do it. And that ends up getting her killed because Poe just can't settle down. He can't just like take a minute. And he does learn that in the end when they're on Crate, when he like takes a second, and Finn at this point is the one that's like, yeah, let's go get him. And he's like, wait, I know what's going on. I know what Luke is trying to do. Well, he doesn't know fully what Luke is trying to do, but like, he gets like, there is a plan here that is being set in motion, and we need to look at this plan from the outside and follow through with that plan. So there is a great moment of learning for Poe in this. I love it. It does not get carried into The Rise of Skywalker. I do think both The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, as much as I love both of those movies with all my heart, would have benefited so much from extended editions.
Agreed.
Where
I needed.
Well, we just don't know what's in those extended editions.
The JJ cut exists. Wait a minute. The JJ cut exists. It's 4 hours long. I will hold on to that.
We just don't know what's in it. We just don't know what's
in it.
Don't.
It's another hour and a half of salacious B. Crumb dancing around with Babu Frick.
Restore the JJ cut. Restore the JJ cut.
I'd be cool with too. But no, like, no. I love The Last Jedi. I love The Rise of Skywalker. I love the stories that are told. I have issues with that. I have issues I don't bring up because I don't want to give toxic fanboys fuel. But I love the movies. I love the stories they tell. I would love more. And I do think that is like an indication of good writing. And I think that's why I do like Finn and Poe and Rey, is that we want so much more out of these characters. Whereas like there's characters that have been written in all the fiction where it's like, yep, that was their story. Great. Moving on. And I think it's awesome that we all of us, I think, desperately want more of each one of these characters. Like, I know I want more of Poe, like more than anything. But yeah, I think that is like a credit to the writers for the sequel trilogy of like making interesting, intriguing characters that we want to see more of.
I'd also say in regards to Finn on Crate, I hate pretty much everything a part of that as well.
I would like to sidebar though. I would like to sidebar real quick and respond to Not Much's comment. He is gay.
Yeah, him and Wedge are like butt buddies. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Hey, we
we didn't try. Star Wars
matter.
already, made it happen.
Yeah.
I don't care. Give me Mara Jade and canon. I
man.
don't care.
Where's Kel's hashtag Wedge Luke?
No. I'm not saying she has to be married to Luke. I just want, because that's generally what their thing is. Oh, he was married to Mara Jade in Legends. I don't care. Give me Mara Jade or not. Well, she could be Rey Skywalker. I don't care. Give me Mara Jade. Give me Mara Jade. That's all I want.
Look at him. Just look at him.
Yeah.
He wears Chanel boots, buddy.
Do you see the way he looks at Han?
He was very sassy in The Last Jedi. He was very sassy.
Yes, he
Sassy throughout
was.
all the movies. That's what I never understood. People like, oh, I don't like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. What has changed?
No, yeah. So okay, so
Yeah, Wormy is not different. Okay.
So if we're gonna start talking about like Last Jedi as a whole, right? I think the biggest thing is like that people have is with Luke, and I personally really love where Luke is at in throughout this entire throughout this movie.
Now you're gonna see Rob and I diverge, but I still want to get. I want to get to Crate before we get to Luke. I want to get to.
I
Okay, all
love
right,
Crate.
we'll go crate, and then we'll go.
Yes, Chaco, exactly.
Okay, so for me, when it comes to Finn on Crate, one, Finn going like trigger happy. Oh, I want to like.
Wait,
just
hold on,
act-
Chris, hold on.
Tashi Station is I think the Emperor is Jay because he watched Vader. get
Toshi
into-
Station isn't a space station. It's a nightclub.
What power? Something was getting converted. Anyway, so when it comes to Finn on Crate, I think it is a disservice to his character to want to just full on just like sacrifice himself on kind of a heel turn on something everyone is saying like, no, this will not work. And he even like if he looks around, he will literally see it's not going to work. But also I think when it comes to, and this is a general criticism with Finn post The Force Awakens, mostly The Rise of Skywalker, but it's kind of in The Last Jedi, when it comes to confronting other stormtroopers that he has openly admitted at least once or twice at this point were also conscripted and taken from homes they never knew. There is not that moment of consideration of, I even in the most Jedi way that he wouldn't know because he's not a Jedi, it would be like, they don't know what's on the other side of this. But I'm still just going to kill them without giving them that opportunity, which I feel like that's another reason why we were robbed of that deleted scene of Finn and Phasma on Snoke's flagship. I don't know if it actually was given a name.
But like a whoop hog.
Right. And so now you're just like, all right, now I'm just going to take any kind of opportunity away from being able to help others the way that I was helped. And I feel like that's more in line with Finn's character than just trying to randomly hold on, I'll try to read. Chris, do you think that might be because you believe Rey to be on Snoke's Star Destroyer? That maybe
Use your finger, Christopher. Use your fingers for those words.
I will come
Sound it out.
I will come in there and smack you. I lost my train of thought. So there is no indication, neither in the novel nor in the movie itself, that Finn is force sensitive, which is one of John Boyega's criticisms of it, and a lot of Finn fans, is that it felt solely like that was a J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan, Chris Terrio thing. And I don't think anyone's ever asked Rian Johnson about the force sensitivity of Finn in the film. I have lots of questions for Rian Johnson about Finn in the film.
Well, I will say, and this isn't, I don't want to excuse it because I'm sure that there was enough time to have like changed it, but he was writing The Last Jedi when they were filming The Force Awakens, so he didn't have like the final product to see all the nuances and like the performances, which I don't know if he had. I'm sure he still had time to change things or do reshoots or whatever. So, but that maybe is the explanation in that way. Because that's bothered me too. Like that's like the one thing that's completely ignored in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't take much. You could really put it in the last film or in the last scene where he either feels something about Luke and doesn't know what it is, like, because you could do it as simple as like what they do with Leia in Empire, where she's able to hear Luke calling out for her. Like, just do something like that. Thread is still continued.
Mhm.
I also hate that a lot of fanboys take that scene where Finn is going to try and sacrifice himself and be like, oh, well, Finn should have died there. Then he would actually went out with some purpose. And I'm like, that's no, no.
So
No.
the battering ram cannon scene, I think is interesting because it reminds me of like real world attempts at good, the idea of like heart being in the right place but going down the wrong path. Like, hey, like I want to do the right thing. This clearly seems like the right thing to do, and then being like, no, that is not the way we do this. This is Finn's Coney 2012 moment.
Oh, that's
wow.
that's something I forgot about.
And there's actually a really something I noticed about this that I think is really interesting in that sequence is you have Rose and Poe in his headset going like, Finn, stop. This is not the way to take down the First Order. We need to regroup and figure this stuff out. And he rips off the headset. And it's just one of those things that it's just like you have people telling you that there is a path to go down. Like, you understand what you're doing, saying you're wrong and wanting to do this, but there is a better way to do this, and him not listening to it. And we see this all the time in real life of like, I get where the sentiment's coming from, but let's maybe not do it this way. And I think that is an interesting moment for me watching that last night, of like watching him rip off the headset with literal like logic and truth being blasted into his ears and being like, no, I'm doing this the way that I believe it should be done, and just not listening to it. And then having someone basically have to shove him out of the way of his own destruction to understand what is really at stake here. So I enjoy that sequence more because of that kind of like that really quick moment of him ripping off this headset.
It's the hate that he feels that is well warranted, that feels out of place for him, because he has never shown to experience that kind of hate, like, oh, I won't let them win. Like, even when he confronts Phasma on the Star Killer base, and he has that upper power dynamic because he has her at blaster point. Like, he's not gonna like, oh, I'm just gonna kill you. It's like, no, we're gonna throw you in a trash compactor. Yes, narratively that was so she could be in The Last Jedi, even though that was kind of useless if you were just gonna kill her off. But so like I understand that him wanting to do that, but the hate is not a consistent character trait before that happens or after. And after, you could say, oh, he learned his lesson there, but also, again, he is 7 to 10 days of being freed from someone that took his entire childhood from him, his family from him. If anybody is able to feel some hate for a few days, it'd be him, which is why when the line comes up that we're gonna win not by fighting what we hate, but saving what we love, like, that is a very Star Wars line. In the context of Star Wars, I don't have a problem with it. In the context of it being said in that moment to Finn in that point in the timeline, I have an issue with, just because contextually, from a viewer standpoint, to me, I feel like just a lot of choices with how they have written Finn as the first Black lead, as the context of a Black person being an enslaved person, is narratively insulting. As a Black man myself, the same age as Finn. At that time, at least.
Do you think it wouldn't be him being energized from everything he's seen at Canto Bight and everything on Snoke's ship, and kind of just certain realizations happening to him that would cause that spike of energy, that spike of hatred? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just like, that's the context I kind of was taking away from it, of like, there's so much going on and like 6 hours, literally 6 hours going through all of that, maybe having a different visceral reaction than he normally would have in the first movie.
Because that only happens at that point. He's not feeling that hatred. If that hatred is brewing inside him, we see no evidence of it at any point up until that. So for it to just hit that high and then never happen again, like, it'd be one thing if you went under Jedi training, right, and was taught how to like manage and control and let those emotions flow through and then let it go into the Force. That'd be one thing. But he doesn't have that. So that just seems like for that one moment, we needed this kind of narrative tension where one of our characters that we love might die. And then I'd also argue the way Rose saves him, it seems like just equally as liable to kill him.
Yeah. I think that's
They
it
weren't
because
very well built ships.
Yeah. It's because they were rickety from the start. That was the thing. Like, I love playing them in Battlefront 2, but I always feel like, I understand why if I hit one thing, I'm done.
I would say totally devoid of the conversation. Like, Crate is probably my favorite planet in Star Wars just because it's so unique looking. I love the way Crate looks. I love just seeing like the red streaks and the red explosions. Oh man, it's great. But no, kind of what I'm assuming is Pep, Element 7 is saying. I really do like the fight with Phasma. Most specifically, he's using riot baton against her. Like, that was the thing that like whooped his ass in the previous movie. And now he's using that same tool, the same riot gear that's probably used on citizens throughout the galaxy. And he's going to use that same tool against Phasma. And I'm like, I love that. I love that part. It's so good.
Yeah, that's great. And it needed to be followed up by the deleted scene. That's what it needed to be.
Deleted scene.
Oh, you haven't seen? Oh, the deleted scene.
I haven't seen the deleted. I'm not a deleted scene person. If there's an extended version, I will watch the extended version. I don't go hunting for deleted scenes.
Acting that John Boyega does in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nicholas said, I'm still amazed he came out of that pretty much unharmed while Rose was targeting him as the one left unconscious.
Yeah, pretty much that too.
Yeah, and stormtroopers don't shoot Luke Skywalker. What are you gonna do?
It happens. But yeah, no. So like so the hatred for Finn was, and then they follow it up in, at least in the novelization, where Rey is talking about Leia, and how, you know, like Leia didn't have that hatred inside of her. Like, she wasn't touched by the dark side in that way. Like Rey says.
Yeah, Rob. Come on, Rob.
There you go.
Where's the Skywalker extended version?
Right. The Rob Butler Productions.
I've already gotten a cease and desist from 20th Century Fox because of Star Wars content back in the day. I don't need one from Disney too.
Really?
Wait, unless, you know, Chris wants to go against Disney lawyers. But yeah,
I know trying to make me go against Disney, man.
back in
Boyega.
Back in 2005, back in 2005, I was part of the Force.net forum and everything like that back then. So they had a thread of where people were taking the episode 3 footage and taking the green screen footage and actually making digital environments what they thought Mustafar and everything was going to look like. So I put it all together and cut a fan trailer for episode 3. And this was before YouTube. So this is when we were using Rapid Share for people to watch the trailer. I had like something like 2 million downloads from Rapid Share. And then I got a letter from 20th Century Fox saying, hey, we need you to take down this trailer. Or we will, you know, there will be some legal action considered against you for using, you know, 20th Century Fox footage and things like that. So yeah, that happened to me in 2005. Yeah.
Well, it's funny.
Fighting court. Chris Butler pulls up, popping his collar.
I was 10.
No, the best part about that though, Rob, is your trailer was probably better than the one that they came out with that literally showed the entire fucking movie.
And that's why I got pulled. That's why I got pulled.
Did you know they had a live stream on the set of the Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah,
it's a random live stream.
Well, it was for all the prequels. They had it.
I've only seen the Revenge of the Sith ones.
Oh my god! As a kid, I would come home and I would watch that for like an hour straight. Not even kidding.
And that's how they pulled a lot of the green screen footage for the episode 3 trailers that they did, was because they were watching the live stream and they were just ripping it off and then making their own adjustments to it. So, I mean, the trailer's still on YouTube. So, I mean, if you want to see my episode 3 trailer, it's still on my channel. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is amazing.
You might have to pull it up right now.
No, because if he got a cease and desist, what the hell are they gonna do to us?
I mean, at this point, they probably don't care unless you're going to, use their music in a fan-made trailer or video about a certain Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah, no, I can't monetize that video. But
this is before the MCUification of film.
Yeah.
No, but so do we want to get into the whole Luke conversation of this movie?
But before we dive in, I just want to make one more point about Canto Bight. So Kris said earlier about Paige didn't have to die, but I think it was important to set up the emotional tension between Rose and Finn. To just be like, hey, my sister died protecting the fleet, and you're running. Which, I mean, if you think about it from her perspective, he was running.
Oh, I mean, when I said Paige didn't have to die, it's not like I'm like saying that she had to live, but I'm saying like from Rose's vantage point, like if she has that conversation with Poe and she's actually able to learn, like Leia told you to turn around, and the destruction of the Dreadnought really didn't do all that much in not just the grand scheme of things, but like the minor scheme of things, then that's a different conversation. Like, yes, it sets up that parallel, but also kind of conflict between Finn and Rose, but that conflict can also just be more easily dispersed if they have a conversation, which they have the time to do. It just doesn't happen. And that's a common Star Wars trope, characters not having a simple conversation that would alleviate a lot of problems. But again, I would say, as I said, when someone
hey Anakin, you feeling all right today?
Pretty much. Like when
Anakin, no.
When you talk about it, bud.
And then a Dr. Phil intervention comes in. He's like, well, my son, you've been doing some very bad things these past few days. Do you have anything to talk about that? I fell to the dark side, and I had. Well, I mean, hey, yeah. That's not my problem. I'm talking about the other people. I'm talking about the victims' parents. I'm talking about your brothers in arms. I'm talking about everybody out here. So what you're doing over here is completely out of pocket, and I need you to say sorry for being such an asshole to these people. I'm sorry. That's not good enough. Say it with some effort.
All right, Char, we got it. Yeah, how the fuck did we get to Char?
Anyways, Canto Bight.
So
Dr. Phil, I'm just saying.
So like the same way that it's that common trope is the same way I would respond to people when they're like, well, yeah, they kind of sidelined Padme in the prequel trilogy, so Jesus, they of course they're going to sideline, like they sideline Finn like they did it before. Yeah, they did it before. That doesn't mean I want to see it again.
I don't think they
learn from your
sidelined
mistakes.
Padme in the trilogy. They only sidelined her in Revenge of the Sith.
I mean, that's a
that's
third
part
of the trilogy.
Yeah.
That's the big
No,
moment.
but
I would like
a
to
lot of
point
her
out,
stuff ended up on the cutting room floor, though. A lot
I
of her stuff
did
ended up on the cutting room
extensive research about this for a TikTok one time, like 3 years ago. But Qui-Gon has almost twice as many lines of dialogue in the Phantom Menace than Padme has in the entire trilogy.
Which is funny because if you look at what George Lucas said, he said that Padme is the main character of the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, she had
did a
18,
very bad
18
job.
lines of dialogue in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, George Lucas said that Padme is the main character in the Phantom Menace.
I
had to take a lot of research to figure out who the main character was of that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kris. Like, the mistakes of the past, like, don't excuse getting to move it forward into the future. I'm also like almost anti that as well. Like, the series has never been perfect. Like, do we expect perfection now? Like, it would be nice, but I don't know if there is a such thing as a perfect movie. Like, what's going to be great for you is not great for me. Like, again, I really like Finn's story, and I'm totally satisfied with the Finn story, not Poe's story though, and it's obviously different for Kris. But I think more to get back on track to Canto Bight. Like, I think there are lots of really, really good messages within Canto Bight. Even like the little things of like the little alien that's like really drunk all the time, like collecting coins off of the ground when there's fathiers like literally trampling overhead, like how disillusioned that guy is. To to the world around him and how that affects how we have people in the modern world collecting money with the world pulling apart around them.
That beautiful alien is Dabuske, who's played by Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill voiced like everyone in Star Wars, didn't he? At this point, like,
Basically, yeah.
I'd also
go ahead.
I'd just say, Tamiri Bragg, I got no problem with him. It was like, I think 2 or 3 weeks after the film came out that I found out that people hated Broom Boy. I was like, for what? He was like, oh, well, why was he able to force pull something? Like, because force pulling things isn't that hard.
Luke does it on the ice. No one told him how to force pull a lightsaber out of the ice hanging upside down. Like, what do you want, man?
Yeah. So I mean, but it's just like, I also would have loved the scene, whether that would have been at the end of the Last Jedi or the end of the Rise of Skywalker, where Finn and Rose go to Canto Bight and free those kids, because Tamiri Bragg should be Finn's first Padawan.
That's interesting. I like
to talk on the kids and not what could be but what is. I really loved at the end of the movie when they're setting this, they're talking about Luke Skywalker and all of that. I really like that the kids don't speak basic. That to me is such a really important touch, because I think that's super central to the story of Star Wars, where I don't think episodes 1 through 6 got, of like the Empire and the Separatists, like, were not so much the Separatists for the Republic, but the Rebellion versus the Empire. The Empire was very human centric. Like,
yes,
it was even in the expanded universe of like, oh, it's a big deal that Thrawn is as powerful as he is, and yet there's no aliens going to fly against the Death Star, and then we get Nia Nub in Return of the Jedi, and that's it.
We get Akbar.
And we have up here and there, but in the sequel trilogy we get the Abednitos that are actively fighting with them.
Elo Asti. We also get
the Beastie Boys.
We get a Ten Nub. We get Ten Nub.
We get a lot more of that, and we get to see again these kids who are human, not speaking basic. They're speaking what we can only assume is the native tongue of where they grew up, and it's probably a world that was exploited by the First Order, hence why they're enslaved on Canto Bight. And they're taking advantage of people who may have limited resources within the galaxy. So I think it's a really interesting and smart touch to not have them speak basic, because I think it adds a lot of depth to the world within the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Yeah, but if you guys want to start talking about Luke in this movie, you guys can. I got nothing else to say about Canto Bight.
Or we just keep
an
that for
entire other episode.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
There's a lot.
I mean, we're not bringing Rob back. So if you want to see us duke it out,
wow, I'm not invited back.
Rob, are you pro or against Last Jedi, Luke?
So I'm split. This is going to come to surprise to Kris, because I've told him different arguments in the past. My okay, so
I know how to read him just like he knows how to read me.
Yeah, my relationship with The Last Jedi is constantly in flux. Like, when I first got out of the theater, when I first saw it, I loved it. Then a few days after thinking about it, I didn't like it. Then I watched it again, and I kind of liked it, because it, everybody has their own headcanon of what they think the next movie is going to be. And so when I started comparing my headcanon to the actual movie, I was disappointed. So then when I went into it the second time without my headcanon, I enjoyed it a little bit more. But then there were obvious narrative plot lines that I did not like, and that kind of took away how I felt about the movie. So Canto Bight being one of them. Holdo not telling Poe the plan, which sparked his impulsiveness and recklessness and caused the mutiny. I didn't really like that plot line. I didn't really have a problem with Holdo as a character. Like, I didn't really have a problem with people as how the character, but how they were written. So Last Jedi Luke, I'll say this. Mark Hamill acted his butt off in that film. I absolutely love his performance as Luke. He did an amazing job. Now, everything that he was given is things that I can say that there's some parts that I did not like. There's some parts that I did like. So, like I said, I'm split.
So here's my question, Rob. After watching Kenobi, does your take change from Luke and Last Jedi? Because they are very similar in very similar points.
They are. And so that's why, because I think I actually was talking to Chris about this when I talked about Luke running away to Acto to basically die. And he was bringing up how I said, a Jedi wouldn't do that. He goes, well, what about Yoda and what Obi-Wan did? They went into exile as well. I'm like, that's actually a very fair point. I think that was you who brought up that point. Was that you?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I knew he would remind me. And I was like, that's a very valid point. And then he brings up about the failure of the Jedi and everything like that, which I can agree about. He agrees about, Sidious. He brings up all those points. So, okay, I agree with that. And so him going into exile made it more sense. What I did not like about something about the sequel trilogy as well is that we never got to see Luke, Han, and Leia together for just one scene.
Yeah.
As bad as the Jurassic World trilogy was, they got one thing right in the last film. The old cast and the new cast got together, and they ended.
I have maybe, I don't know if it's a hot take. It seems like hot when I bring it up. I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't get that opportunity. I think it's better storytelling wise. I think when Chewie comes into the hut and Luke says, "Where's Han?" That's more impactful than
and then it cuts to Kylo.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazingly edited. And it's just like that moment to me is worth more than the fan service moment of, Luke and Han being together. With the real world scenario of Carrie Fisher passing away, yes, it would have been nice to see it, like to personally as fans see it, but in the grand scheme of we have a story to tell, and what Element said is right. It is more impactful that they don't see each other.
And I agree with that. I think I'm more colored because of Carrie Fisher dying. And then now we'll never get that again. I think that is where I come from on that angle. It's because narratively speaking, I get that. But from a real standpoint, being at the Star Wars Celebration 2015 when they announced Force Awakens and seeing everybody there but Harrison because he was nursing a broken leg, that made me feel a type of way as a fan, seeing them together like that. So I definitely get that from a narrative standpoint, but as a fan, it was kind of like, I wish we had at least one scene with them all together.
I agree, but I do think it runs into like Fast and Furious. You're gonna throw Paul Walker in a car because he's dead.
I will say to the point about them not being together, what I would have appreciated from the sequel trilogy more is a little bit of seeing what they had successfully built to that being taken away from them, like seeing them actually happy. Because when often in Star Wars do we see characters actually happy, and then the end of the Phantom Menace, the end of Attack of the Clones, maybe because you have the wedding scene, but then it's immediately taken away with the Imperial March.
War is hell. I don't know if you know this or not, Chris.
But I'm saying they weren't always at war in between those 30 years. So if we had seen something about what are we losing with the New Republic? We know they're losing their victory with the First Order coming, but we don't really get a chance to see that victory all that much. We see it in books, but I didn't read those books until 2017, 2018, because I didn't know they had come out. But then, so there's that. In regards to Luke and the Last Jedi, I have 3 problems. One, the scene where Luke warns Han, that is a deleted scene. It is 17 seconds long. You can't tell me that couldn't have been in the film, because
that could have been.
Narratively, it goes right before you go to Leia on the ship and when they're in hyperspace, it goes from Luke mourning Han in the hut to Leia mourning Han in the thing, and that's just a beautiful parallel. They should have kept that. 2, I don't have a problem with Luke going to Ahch-To in exile. My problem specifically is him leaving Leia. I feel like of all the people Luke wouldn't have left any kind of contact with Leia above anybody else, considering that is the only family he at that point feels he has left.
Well,
I understand why. I just don't like it. And then the third final thing is Luke should have lived at the end just for the simple fact of he should have been around to help clean up the mess that he made.
Man, that's a whole wow.
Well, you
No,
see,
and
Chris,
it-
I mean, like the reason why Luke was afraid to go see Leia was because he failed Ben.
No, I know
And
exactly
seeing
why
his
he did
parents and being like, "Hey, you trust me
Yeah.
with your son, and I failed you." That he might have, he would have felt guilty and would have felt.
Oh,
Like-
that,
No,
that's
I 100%
established.
get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But when you I guess in for me it's like there is that bond because they are twins, because of everything that they've gone through with their father,
Yeah.
and all the things that we will get at some point in content when they fully have that conversation. I feel like there is a moment where Luke and Leia had a maybe not a conversation, but were able to feel like the other in the Force and those emotions. And at that point, like Leia, even where she is then, would have been forgiving of Luke to know that it was not his fault.
Two things.
And whether Luke accepted that or not is another thing. We just don't have that story yet.
Two things. One, Chaco, I'd like to tell you a little thing about money, and it exists.
and demographic.
That wouldn't have gone over well. as much as an interesting story would have come out of it. Oh man, that would have.
Yeah, I'd say from The Force Awakens making $2 billion, $1 billion alone was just from the original cast. I'm just being fair.
And number two, and this is maybe more headcanon-y or anything.
I get it. I understand it. I just don't like it.
That's right.
I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it otherwise. I'm just saying I don't like it.
I think
That's
I think the point that gets missed, and I don't necessarily anyone here is missing the point, is that if we look at a New Hope and we look at Obi-Wan like putting up his sword or his lightsaber and letting Darth Vader cut him down, he has fully accepted his physical form, his physical body is meaningless in comparison to the Force. And I do believe that Luke and Leia have that same understanding of that. Yes, you will not physically see me ever again, but the Force will keep us together, and you will feel me through the Force, and you will know that I'm there through
Which
the
at
Force.
the end of The Rise of Skywalker, we know that they're close to the Force.
Yeah.
I
So-
will say the ending of the Last Jedi book kind of doesn't do that because Luke has to physically be told to let go in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
I haven't read that.
So I'm going to bring up a point that Chris made that's kind of a hot take. Chris said he thought that Luke should survive to help clean up the mess that he created in the universe. In that same aspect, I think Rey should have died in The Rise of Skywalker and Ben Solo should have lived. Having Ben rebuild the Jedi Order and rebuild the universe that he helped destroyed, I think would have made a more narrative impact at the end of Rise of Skywalker if we got that. That's just something I've been thinking about lately. Like, if Ben would have survived and Rey would have died and he had the task of rebuilding everything that he destroyed, I think would have made a hell of an ending.
I would have
disagree
become a
with
toxic
Rey
fan
dying.
if I would have become a toxic fan if Rey had died.
Yeah. Because
I
I, don't
get
know
that,
what
I
does
get
that what does that say to like all the little girls that look up to her? You know what I mean? I get
Yeah.
like it would be interesting, but like there's no way. that they
Well, I
would've-
mean, it would basically be like if Vader would have survived Return of the Jedi.
Sorry about all those war crimes, guys.
I'm not getting into the if Ben Solo should have lived debate because I am in the camp of he should have. Anyway, sorry about. I don't think Rey needed to die in his place.
Well, I said it was a hot take. I did say it was a hot take. I knew that. I was gonna get
I'm
I knew where I was
I'm
going.
not in the camp of it'd be kind of like
Exactly, Pap. Exactly.
I
If
don't
Ben
know
had
about
lived,
that, though,
everyone
because
would have
not
put a
if-
bounty
not-
on him.
Did the galaxy know that Ben Solo and Kylo Ren are the same person? Like
That was a good point. Because
it was never
everybody
very
knew Vader-
explicit to me. There were very few people that knew who
That's-
Ben Solo.
Oh no, but they know what he
all,
looked like.
all I'm saying
They
is,
knew- they know what he looked like.
yeah,
text proves otherwise.
Well, it depends. No,
That was
it
Kylo
depends,
Ren,
though.
guys.
When Kylo,
It wasn't me. It was the other guy. Yeah.
when Kylo is the supreme leader in between 8 and 9, he doesn't have his helmet for most of that, besides what we see in Galaxy's Edge, which is a whole other conversation. If that's the case, his face is at least out there, so at least some people may be able to make the connection. I don't know if it's widely known. But all I'm saying is, if Rey brings Ben back to the party on Agen Kloss, and I'm Finn and Poe, we about to go throw hands with Ben Solo.
guys, no, that was Kylo Ren. I'm Ben Solo.
Yeah.
Ben's gonna pull out
everybody
that electric
that
baton
tells
out of
me.
nowhere and just start going to attack.
Oh yeah, like Force Awakens, the Z6 just boom, boom, boom.
I mean, she didn't need to take him back, but I'm just thinking about this now. Like, what would I have done instead? Like, I think they should go their separate ways. But I feel like it would have been cool if, like, also, I don't know how they would have been able to get out together, because isn't there only one ship left? Or were there two?
No, his TIE fighter would.
Yeah, his TIE
still
fighter is still around.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could have been cool if, like, Rey took him to Octo before she like dropped him off and was like, "Here, this place helped me."
Yeah,
Hey, here's your rehab. Deal with
and
these
there's
fuckers.
no one here. I promise.
yeah, Luke, like
Just don't throw rocks off of cliffs and you'll be fine.
yeah, if Vader survived and went back to the Ewok village, Leia probably would have tried to shoot him.
Well, I think that
many times.
the point being is that Ben wouldn't be reassimilated into civilization. He would just be left.
No, Leia would have tried to kill
So
Vader.
I would say two paths of a Ben Solo should have lived story, how they would go. You either go the Legend of Korra Kuvira route, which happens post the series in a graphic novel, where she is in prison, but she is temporarily let out to help stop members of the Earth Empire that are still rampant, that didn't didn't follow her order to stand down. And then after that, she is taken into custody of her adopted family prior to that, to help rehabilitate her and essentially for her to carry out the rest of her sentence. And it goes from her pleading not guilty at the beginning of the story to guilty. The second one is if anybody's read the story of Rurouni Kenshin, like, that is the path of redemption and atonement.
That's what say Chaco just said that.
There it is.
There you go.
What is that? Is that from thing or is that just a
Rurouni Kenshin is a manga and an anime. The anime, the first 2 seasons are great. The 3rd season is all filler because the story wasn't done and it's terrible. And it
that word coming out of
I like the
Chris's
movies.
mouth.
No. It is
Luke,
all
filler.
no,
Is a thing.
No, it by definition of, like, in the manga anime standards, the 3rd season is filler because it is not in the manga. That's pretty much the definition of filler when it comes to that. Like, it's not in the manga. It's not canon to the story.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how do you pronounce the name of that show again?
Fight me. So he used to say that name.
Malice
You're
of the Palace
related.
2 over here.
He
Malice
used
of
to
the
say
Palace
that
2.
name wrong all the time.
Confirmed by this guy that I met. His name is Ronald. Say hi.
Oh my god.
So yeah, but that would have been the perfect way for atonement of Ben, learning, like, who am I after being a killer for?
Yes, Matt, the radar technician. I agree with that. Yes, Matt, the radar technician.
I would go more along the lines of, like, in seriousness, like, go along the lines of what Brooke said, is like, live out your life in peace on Octo.
I haven't had my muffin yet, Matt.
Where's the justice in that?
I need my gluten, Matt.
I could see both. I can see Rey or telling him to go there to, like, reconnect himself with the Force and then deal with, like, the atonement part of it,
Yeah, have all the Force ghosts be like, "Hey kid, you fucked up."
But not as bad as your grandpa.
No, I would just love to see him have a talk with Mace Windu. That would be fun. That would be real fun.
Oh, look, another Skywalker being an asshole. Who would have guessed?
I could see that. I think that could be interesting. It's It's a good what if scenario.
yeah.
Again, I think as goofy as it has been, like I do think the assimilation and civilization is like really difficult to justify. Especially to those on Hosnian Prime.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, not
Well,
unless Finn and Poe
are
and
they-
like several other Resistance members get the bare knuckle box Ben Solo while he's tied up to a pole.
You gonna go up against Ben Swolo?
Nah, he's tied up with the pole, so they're literally just throwing body blows
Hey, Ray.
and face blows.
They're gonna punch his 8-pack.
Yep.
Kylo Ren had an 8-pack. Kylo Ren was shredded.
Shredded.
What? You're a liar, man. Kylo Ren's a punk bitch. It's probably 30 pounds soaking wet underneath that black.
I do think this is my opportunity to plug Alphabet Squadron. You can write a really good redemption arc with really bad people. People who
Insert
do really bad
insert
things.
Erica Quell. Here we go.
Erica Quell, that motherfucker. She's not a good person, but she learns to kind of be one. I do think her redemption arc is super well written. I think she did not do the scale of Ben or Anakin. Yes, exactly. Choco knows, but no, you can write that redemption arc well. I think with some clever writing, you could do it with Ben Solo. It'd be really hard. He's a bad boy. He's a real bad
If
boy.
we're going with GOAT, former Imperials, it's Ciena Ree, aka Finn's mom, and no one will take that from me.
AKA, she's still in jail.
She is until we get Lost Stars 2, you know.
All right.
She's still
Gray,
still
where
in
you
jail when Exegol is happening. She's like, guys, can I get out?
No, because she had Finn with Thane, and he was taken by Nash Winright.
He's a prison baby.
Oh my
That just adds another layer of
Like, oh my God,
that we're not
man.
having during Black History Month.
Jesus Christ. All right. Well, that's a good place to stop. My God.
The Podwans are now canceled during Black History Month.
Hey, I am not associated with Podwans anymore.
The fuck you aren't. Chris, go ahead and close this thing out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that too, honestly. But then I'm like, okay, who killed Reva then? Like, who punked Reva? All right, she's been punked enough.
Moses Ingram.
Oh yeah.
Moses
Yeah,
Ingram.
you want to share with the class, Rob?
No, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I
Awesome.
thought.
No,
Anyway, thank you for
thank
listening
you,
into
thank
this conversation about Canto Bight with our wonderful panelists and my co-hosts Luke, Char, Rob, Chase, and Brooke. Before we go, make sure you like the stream and follow all these wonderful people on their social media platforms, which they are about to tell you about, starting with Brooke.
Well, this has been fun. Okay, wait, hold on. I just thought of it. We can't end a discussion about The Last Jedi without. I need to know if you are pro or anti-Porg.
Pro Porg.
Pro Porg. Is that's
Yeah.
that?
There are some people that viscerally hate the Porgs.
Are you
Well, they
fucking
should
kidding me?
viscerally go fuck themselves.
I want to eat one.
Exactly. That's my thing. Does that mean I hate it if I want to eat it? That's what I want.
I will never be convinced. I will never be convinced that The Last Jedi is not an animal liberation propaganda movie. The liberation of the Fathiers and the way that Chewie is guilted into not eating meat. Brian Johnson's vegan.
I wouldn't have been guilted. I'd have been like, you want some? You want to join them? Like,
Oh
What you
my
want?
God.
Oh, Christopher, DBZA. I'm delicious.
Luke will get that reference.
I just love the Porgs. look delicious.
Give me all
I
the
just
space
like them
chickens,
because
exactly.
like the environmental science in me, like the behind the scenes stuff, is that the reason that porgs are even a thing is because when they were filming on the
Puffins.
island, there were so many
The
puffins,
puffins,
and it was
yep.
easier to like put something over them in post than to erase all of them, and so they made
Yeah.
porgs.
And then you can sell it because poor capitalism.
Okay.
I've got more than one.
I was
Guy over there.
not the biggest Porg fan because of like, oh, you literally made a creature just to sell animals. Cool, great, here we go. And then I found out it was like, no, we actually we're just editing over puffins because they wouldn't go away. I'm like, okay, that's cute, and he became over it. Fine, great.
I would more like the crystal foxes on crate than the
I
porgs
love the
as
crystal.
merchandise.
I love.
I
crate
really
so
love
much.
those.
God,
I
crate is
love
so
those
cool.
foxes though.
The Vulptexes.
Vulptexes.
Sounds like a Pokemon.
I choose
They
you.
look like
sounds like
Pokemon.
Vulpix.
They
It
look
sounds
like
like Vulpix.
Yeah.
It's close.
But
Anyway, thanks for indulging me. You can find me at _Bdazzler on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. You probably won't find me talking about anything Star Wars lately.
Let me
But
help
if
you
you
out,
like
Brooke.
The Last of Us, and if you like The Walking Dead, you're girl. Anyway, Far Far Away Factory. Buy my stuff.
Yes, right here. Buy your stuff right now.
buy
If
it
you wait any
now.
longer, I will
Now.
find you, okay.
What are you doing? Why are you still here with us? Go to that. What are we
Buy your
doing?
Brotherhood shirt right now.
Yeah, right now. Anyway, sorry.
That's intense.
What is this, Ferris Bueller?
Yes. Anyway, Chase.
To carry on the trend that Brooks said, are we pro or against X-Wing Tokyo drifting? I'm super pro Tokyo drifting and X-Wings.
Bro.
That's
I
the
don't
coolest shit.
I don't understand how
Hans
you can
Fred
be
Needles.
anti that.
Because it
It's
sounds
just so
fucking cool.
There are people that are anti-drifting, and I'm like,
Well,
Hey,
hey,
Han
boring
they're-
ass.
Hey, yeah, exactly. They're anti-fucks. Okay, like they do not fuck. Like they don't know how to do that.
Hey, Han drifted the Falcon. He learned that from his buddy Needles, and it worked out great. Okay, nothing wrong with drifting a ship.
but yes, very pro X-Wing drifting, very pro Canto Bight, very pro Last Jedi, and you can follow me at ForwardintotheBlack to talk about Star Wars, talk about Star Citizen, where I will be drifting spaceships on my own.
Rob.
I am Rob, the filmmaker. You can find my latest film, Life Ain't Like the Movies, on Tubi, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Roku, and a couple other places. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok on Breezy2345. And everybody live long and prosper. I'm sorry, wrong franchise.
Oh my God! All right, now I know why,
No.
and that's why he's never coming back ever again. Because he did that. So that's what you have to deal with every day, Chris. Now I understand.
I mean, okay, but here's the thing.
I feel like
Here-
Rob was planning that because when
No,
we were
he
doing
was.
our little wave thing,
Absolutely.
he looked like he was about to do
Absolutely.
this, and I was like, "You better not do
Oh,
it."
he's sad.
I was thinking about it. I knew you were gonna do it.
Here's the thing, Robert. What franchise did you watch that inspired you to be a filmmaker?
Star Wars.
Yeah, see, there it is. He's been a nerd from the very beginning.
I introduced him to Star Wars. Our mother is a nerd. Our mother loves Star Trek. And she's a Star Wars fan, but she's a Trekkie more than Star Wars.
Yeah,
but,
I
you know.
feel that. I feel
Yeah,
that.
so.
I mean,
The
you
amount
got
of animal abusers in the chat is really pissing me off.
It's not animal abuse, Chase. It's the circle of life.
Circle of life.
Rotisserie
Another
pork
thing-
is not the circle of life.
Hey, yes, it is. You cook it up, you fry it, put it in a little batter, give it a little garlic powder, some,
Jesus.
bacon, grease. Like, you're good.
Chris,
Disgusting.
Char.
I'll
where
learn
can
nothing
people
from
follow
this
you?
movie.
Before I say where the people can follow me, I just want to, my life be like ooh ah ooh. My life be like ooh.
Now do it as
ah,
Gilbert
ooh,
Gottfried.
No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Where's the mute? Where's mute? I don't.
My life be like ooh ah. Okay. Anyway, good people, you can find me on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at CharJ, as spelled right here. And you can find me here at the Podwans podcast every Thursday night as we cover our Star Wars Rebels rewatch. And thank you for watching.
Uh,
I appreciate it.
all right, We missed that. You
Sorry.
can,
Do you?
no,
Don't worry.
I really do. To be honest, I
Don't
was
worry, it'll be back in,
rewatching
like,
the
2 years.
I was rewatching because I had to By the way, if you guys are watching or listening to the podcast part of like not these bonus episodes, but like the like what we're going through, the numbers are going to be a little fucked because I was going through every single episode and I was like, wait, hold on, we're missing something in the audio, and it's because I'm missing the Maul returns arc on audio. So I had to like change all the numbers. So technically yesterday's was 81 to like next week's will be 82. But that was useless
hey,
stuff that I wasn't.
Hey,
that I
I'm
shouldn't
so
be
glad I
doing
know
up.
that now.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Hey,
My
look,
life is infinitely better.
No,
Yeah.
your life is like
Information.
ooh.
Yeah.
No, but look, with that little mishap of 81 and 82, it's like one of my favorite songs from Sum 41. We're in too deep.
I mean,
I'm trying to keep all the
honestly,
thoughts in my head instead of going under. You know what I mean?
honestly, it's like it's very on brand for me to make a mistake like that. So I'm
Oh,
just
of
going
course.
with it.
Oh no, yeah,
So,
you're the king of mishaps. Okay.
hey,
All this
And
pork
counting.
talk in the comments is making me hungry. I want to eat.
Yeah, that's what
because
I'm.
you didn't eat.
That's what I'm saying. I
That's
didn't
true,
eat
too.
either. So, you can find us on all social medias at the Podwans. If you guys like what you guys see here every Friday night, we're live on Thursday. We're gonna be doing streams and stuff here shortly. Other content. Like, comment, subscribe. Go to Chris's Twitch, by the way. Show him some love. Go to Brooks because she streams The Last of Us and Jedi Fallen Order.
And buy her merchandise
buy
right
her
now.
fucking merch. Buy her merch
right now.
All right. Chris.
And you can find me Star Wars Lawyer on all the things: YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, Hive. I think that's everything. And you can listen to my podcast with my co-host Kris Too Black Too Nerdy wherever you listen to podcasts.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
But that's gonna be it. We'll see you guys later. May the Force be with you.
Always.
There are more